morning, everyone.
Bonjour tout le monde, bonjour.
Bonjour. I can say that too.
Hey, she's from Miami.
I from Miami, right? This is normal for us.
Yes.
Good morning. Welcome to Art Week Miami. Most importantly, welcome to Black and Basel Week here in South Florida.
Ooh.
Celebrating Black art and culture.
Yes.
From all over the world, all over the African diaspora. My name is Melissa Hunter Davis. I am the founder of Sugarcane magazine.
Yes, and my name is Evelyn Pierre. I am the director and the founder of the Haitian Heritage Museum.
Yeah.
Woo! It's around the corner. You guys get to see it later. And yes, we are here on this amazing event, which is Black Women in Art,
Yes.
the Noir Perspective. And we wanted to do something like this because all of us who live here in South Florida, we could never get together and see each other and talk. And we wanted to make sure that we have something that's going to create a legacy, opportunities, and of course to give us knowledge, because a lot of things are happening in the space, and we of people of color always seems to kind of get it at the end. So we want to make sure that we get it in advance. So this is the reason why we did. Yeah, you guys can clap up for that. See snapping?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so without further ado, Melissa, you want to say anything else?
Yes, please, before you go, make sure that you pick up a magazine before you leave. Be sure that you are visiting our Black and Basel Guide online at sugarcanemag.com. Make sure that you are supporting Black artists, not only from outside of South Florida, but also the local artists who are based here in the space, who are based here in South Florida. We'll make sure that we're going to those galleries and supporting them as well. Not only by posting on Instagram, but making purchases or even making donations to your local institutions. That would always be helpful. If you're not following,
Yes, clap that up, clap it up.
If you're not following us on Instagram, please follow us at Sugarcane Magazine on Instagram, and then we're also following the Haitian Heritage Museum
at Haitian Heritage Museum on Comcast. I'm sorry, you said Comcast. Haitian Heritage Museum on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you guys are in for a great treat. We have to focus on this joyous occasion, but we're going to allow you guys to go into the museum to see the artwork.
Yes.
Okay, so please go out and support everything Black, Haitian, Caribbean.
Yes.
Afro-Caribbean.
From Europe, from the continent. Make sure that you're supporting us. And before we start, we do have a treat for you. We have a fantastic spoken word performance.
Yes, amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce her really quickly. Let me put on my glasses because I got to read on the phone. I have Monique Douglas here. I'm going to just read her short bio. She's been inducted in the 2018 Charlotte, North Carolina Women's History Hall of Fame and the Levine Museum of the New South. Identify herself as an ordinary woman with an extraordinary heart. Her soul ignites her passion of grooming others to greatness. Oh, now it gets small. Grooming others to greatness, Foundation. She and her husband, Kevin, resides in Charlotte, North Carolina. They are owners of CBK Branding and Consulting Firm, operating out of the Studio 229 in Brevard, a full-service boutique branding company curating brand strategies for small business and professional and corporations. Her contagious smile, coupled with her leadership abilities, is what draws individuals to her and why she feels blessed to live a rich life, okay? Rich lifestyle has nothing to do with money, but everything to do with mindset and embracing meaningful relationship. You guys put your hands together for Monique Douglas. Yes.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Evelyn. I am humbled to have the opportunity to grace her stage and as a visitor here from Charlotte, North Carolina, and a part of the Art Basel, as we have a gallery here actually in the building. So, but more special to me is the fact that I am of Haitian heritage. I am a Bahamian. My grandmother was Haitian from Port-au-Prince. And so this means a lot to me to be here and to share on this forum. So let's get it in. So just to preface this piece, it's called I Define Me, which is such a powerful statement. It's short and sweet, but ooh, it is powerful, right? I define me. And so as women in all different walks of life and perspectives, there are many times when we second guess who we are, when we compare ourselves to others, and we allow circumstances in our life's journey to dictate who we think we are, when really we are the ones that get to define who we are. I am a beautiful black woman living in a society that wishes to mold me, but my own self-respect won't allow anyone but myself to define me. I don't have a need to be trendy. Insubstantial judgments rarely do offend me. I am who I am. I choose freely who I wish to be. It is not hard to fathom how I define me. I don't need to speak any Ebonics, pretending to be hooked on phonics to get where I fit in. With shallow cliques and deceitful friends, God made me beautifully articulate, you see, and I define me. I don't need a man standing by my side to obtain a sense of self-pride. A strong man's love is a commodity to be known. But before I will allow a man to undermine my strengths, I will gladly stand alone. Do I possess weaknesses? Yes, that's for sure. But what makes me the queen that I am is my ability to endure. You see, I define me. Though it's not always done easily, because the perils of a weak society often catch us in an unjust propriety. They say an educated woman is something to be feared, but as she chooses her path and defines who she is something to be revered. I wasn't presented with a silver spoon at the time of my birth, but I didn't sit around and wait for the world to determine my intrinsic worth. I chose to stand out, never waiting for a handout. I chose never to wait on destiny when I was perfectly capable of defining me. Intrigued by my own intrepidity, some ridicule the woman that I am. Sometimes my own brothers and sisters, but I have the master plan. You see, I define me. Take off your blinders and see. This world won't give credit where it's due until you stand on your own and decide to define you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi, that was beautiful. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with our panel talk. This talk is gonna be on Black women in arts. So can I welcome up the guests to the stages? Huh?
You there? Okay. Grab my hand. Help me up. There we go.
Hello, good morning, everyone. How is Miami Art Week treating you guys? Good? No, you guys sound tired. So we have a lovely panel this morning. So excited to be here talking with everyone. So in need of introduction, my name is Kendra Walker. I am an art advisor and writer based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I have contributed to publications such as Artsy, the Art Newspaper, Sugarcane Mag, Cultured Mag, Gallery Mag, just to name a couple. I focus on Black emerging and mid-career artists, and just trying to kind of raise the profile for artists that I really find have attractive careers. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're gonna do a quick introduction. So we have Miss Melissa Hunter Davis.
Good morning again. For those who may have come late, my name is Melissa Hunter Davis, founder and editor of Sugarcane magazine.
Go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Yvena Despagne. I am an artist and curator from New York, based in Brooklyn, and I'm also the founder of RX Haiti.
Hello? Hi, my name is Mikki Taylor. I am a professor at Howard University in the fashion design department. I'm also a designer, photographer, and fashion designer.
And good morning, everyone. My name is Mikhaile Solomon. I am the founder and director of Prism Art Fair, the leading art fair for African and African diaspora art in the United States.
So yeah, we have a very great panel of panelists, and we're going to have a really good conversation. So maybe let's start off by each person kind of telling us how you got involved in the arts, what attracted you to this space, and a little bit about the beginning stages of your career. Start with Melissa.
So when I was a child, I started watching PBS, and I had to watch PBS because we couldn't afford cable. So I only had the basic channels, and PBS was one of those channels. So I would, of course, watch all the children's programming when I was young. But in the evening, when you had to go to the TV and actually flip the dial, I'm from the Chicagoland area, so I would turn to Channel 11, and I could watch great performances, watch, the opera, and see Alvin Ailey, and see fantastic musicals. And that was my entrance into the art world. And when I would watch that, I knew immediately that that was the key to a great life. That if you wanted a rich life, money was fantastic, of course, but having access to culture, to me, really made a very rich life, and I wanted a part of that. And as I got older, I just had more and more opportunities to run into the arts. My mother went back to college when I was 8, and she took an art history class, and she had her art history book, and I loved it. And typically at the end of every semester, she would give her books back, get the money from it, go buy books for the next semester. And I begged her to let me keep that one. Please let me have this one. She probably could have got 40 bucks back, but instead she let me have it. And when I got older, she didn't say anything. I'm so happy because she would typically be mad about that, but I cut out the pictures of everything that I liked, and I taped them to my wall. So that was my introduction into the arts. I started doing theater in college, and I worked in the arts, and I landed here.
I wouldn't say typically that I got into the art. I feel like art found me at the right moment in my life. I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do with myself, and getting married back in 2010, I felt like, well, I had to be the responsible woman. I have a family now with me and my husband, so I had to find some type of responsibility in helping to pay the bills. So I went into the medical field because typically in the Caribbean household, growing up, they're saying that, the successful careers is being a lawyer, a doctor, engineer, or, did I say lawyer? Yes. But I am a nurse, especially for women. Being a nurse or being a doctor was a great success for a Haitian woman. And so, I took the exam and became a certified nursing assistant as a start to see if I wanted to be in the medical field. And I did that for 4.5 years, and I was miserable. And soon after, my marriage wasn't going well, so we got a divorce. And I was always depressed since childhood, and so that really broke me, and I started to see myself getting back into that depressive mindset. And I had to find something to, give me a positive outlet to healing from that. And one day, laying miserable in my bed, going through YouTube, a tutorial popped up. And it was a woman doing a tutorial on painting a night scene in QuickTime. And so I just found myself being hypnotized by what she was doing, and I felt what she was doing was so beautiful. And at the end of it, I felt better. And I said, wow, maybe this is the thing. So I decided the next day to go to Blick Art Shop and buy all the paint that she bought. I bought the same size canvas. I bought a full easel, the whole nine. And I sat in front of that, canvas and decided to try it. And my piece came out almost exactly like hers. And I felt like, wow. And honestly, it was the first time that I stopped thinking about my issues, stopped thinking about the things that were troubling me, and felt so much better. And I just kept going after that. So one painting turned to 10 paintings, turned to 50 paintings. Next thing I know, I'm taking over the family's kitchen, and they were letting me. My family was letting me. And I would come home from my job in the nursing home, and I wouldn't even shower. I would just take off my clothes, put on my sweats, and go back into the art. I became addicted, and it became a hobby for me. But then eventually, that hobby turned into passion, and I started diving deeper into it. And I was doing everything as far as learning about art. And I started to notice that there was a lack of representation for Haitian artists. So then I started to grow that passion, and then I started working in the arts, which was very funny to me, because honestly, this was just supposed to be a hobby. And just one opportunity after the next kept leading me into deeper and deeper into the arts, and eventually I went from teaching myself how to be an artist, to showcasing my artwork, to working in a gallery. I was hired by this one gallery called SK Art Space in New York when they had an actual gallery. And so they gave me my first opportunity at curating. That was something I was curious about, and so I dived deeper into that. I did one show, it became successful, and here I am now.
Hello again. My introduction to art and design happened at a very, very early age. For those of you who know when the first black Barbie doll came on the scene, that would be me. No baby dolls for me. I started designing and sewing the clothes for her. My mom was an avid sewer, so from the scraps of those materials, I would create the fashions for the doll, which I still have today. Some of them are really cool. But not only that, I would take the additional scraps and make tote bags after I completed my homework assignment. That was very, very successful. Students were giving me their lunch money for my tote bags. What happened, interception by the principal called my parents and said, "You must curtail your daughter's entrepreneurship. She is disrupting the class with her orders of the tote bags." True story. So, along with the fashion, it's always been photography and art design. So this is another childhood thing. I discovered that you could take the 64-pack of Crayola crayons, dating myself again, with the sharpener, and sit by the vent and melt them and smear them on the paper and on the wall, and then you get a whipping. But it was a good design. It was a very good design. So fast forward to my life in art and design. I studied studio art and design, matriculated to have over 30 years of graphic design as a principal designer. Fast forward to layering all my disciplines of photography, design, and fashion into doing large format graphics, housewares in fashion and photography. So in my second life, from the school that I matriculated from, I am a professor at Howard University teaching in the fashion design program, which I love all my students and love just being there and giving back.
So I guess we could start with my name. My name is Mikhaile. My mother named me after a dancer, Mikhaile Barishnikov. And I danced for a very long time. I danced for 13 years. And then my body said, we're tired of dancing. I played the piano for about the same amount of time, but I was never an Alicia Keys. So I was like, maybe this isn't the right medium for me either. I explored, I think I've dabbled in almost every artistic medium you can think of. And then when I was a child, I had this, an inclination. I was always drawing houses in sketchbooks. And in architecture, there's a drawing called a section. I was always drawing houses in section, but didn't know that I was drawing sections when I was a child. And I was addicted to doing it. And I actually opened up my sketchbooks maybe about a year ago. I was looking through my old things, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was drawing like an architect when I was 5. And I didn't realize it. And then my parents were like, you need gainful employment, Mikhaile. You can't just be an artist. So when I was in theater school, which is what I got my undergraduate degree in, I got my BFA from University of South Florida. I was more interested in the design aspect of theater than I was performance. And in studying stage design, we were learning architectural vernacular. And so I decided to go to grad school and study architecture. So my background is actually in architecture. And I decided to transmute the skills that I learned in architecture school, graphic design, project management, into the business that I run today, which is Prism Art Fair. I essentially design almost everything for the fair. I design the graphics, I design our website, I design the exhibition, I curate the artwork. So I've just kind of figured out ways to take my own artistic past and turn it into a business that is hopefully shaping the lives of other folks. So that's my journey.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, ladies. So something that we have in common with all the women on stage is these are some visionaries right here. It's one thing to kind of create an idea or a business in your head, but to go full throttle with it and execute it is something that each lady on this stage has done successfully. So one thing I want to make sure that we kind of take away from this conversation is finding a gap in the industry. Each woman has done that very successfully. Planning, funding, executing, and personal markers of success. So we're going to start off with Ms. Mikhaile, since we ended off with you. Maybe you can tell us about what made you decide to create Prism and the gap that you saw in the world, and kind of how you created that from start to finish, briefly.
I was working on a project previously about 11 years ago. And there was a lot of artists from the diaspora in that project that I worked with, but they wanted to be presented to the world at a world-class level. I was like, well, let's. And these were local artists. Melissa was in on those conversations as well, on the ground level of Prism. And I was just tired of going to other art fairs and not seeing a lot of Black artists and not seeing a lot of Black galleries represented. Myself, Melissa, and I'm sure several of you in this room also know galleries and artistic spaces that are run by African diasporic proprietors that the market does not choose to acknowledge. So I intentionally use Prism as a vehicle for elevating the voices of artists as well as proprietors who represent artists to a level, to the same level of conversation that the folks here that are here during Miami Art Week are having. That's essentially what I do.
So I'm really interested. I feel like as a business person, as a creative, it can be sometimes hard to stick with your vision, especially when you kind of move up in levels. So I'm really curious if we can talk about funding a little bit. How did you find funding for Prism, for potential investors, and how did you stick with your vision and your moral codes of what you want a Prism to be just as you kind of keep moving? And how do you find people that truly see your vision?
Well, I think when I started Prism, I was lucky that I was talking to people who appreciated what my vision was. And oftentimes in those conversations, I didn't actually have to even ask them for the investment. They asked me, how can I help you? So the Green Family Foundation, for instance, is a major supporter of our fair. And they've been supporting us since 2014. And every year they just want to know what the program is going to be, and they're like, all right, let me write this check. And same thing with the Knight Foundation. The Knight Foundation has been a huge supporter of ours. And we have local, like the Greater Miami Visitors Convention Bureau, which is supporting this event today. I think there's just, there's people who, or organizations that really want to support strong cultural programming. You just kind of have to keep your ears to the ground and find out who they are. And then you also have to be willing to put in the work to make sure that it is presented at a level that is a good reflection of your brand as well as theirs. And then I think after we started getting more support, institutional support, I started getting more individual support where people would see the impact that Prism was having, and then they also wanted to support. So I like to think that Prism is a community effort, and I just kind of like steer the ship.
Last question. Where do you see Prism in the next 5 years?
Well, myself and my board are saying Prism has to be in several locations around the world. So, of course, Miami's always going to remain the headquartered space because it began here. I'm from here, and it's adjacent to the Caribbean where I'm from. But I'd like to have a Prism in New York, in Detroit, and somewhere on the continent, whether that be South Africa or Ghana or Nigeria. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mchale. So now we're going to move on to Miss Mikki Taylor. So you briefly kind of talked about your introduction into fashion, but maybe you can talk a little bit more about that and even the recent projects that you just accomplished.
Recent projects that I just accomplished is what I'm wearing today. And actually, this designs that I'm wearing today was a large format photograph of myself and my partner. So that's very recent thing. And another recent activity in fashion was DC Fashion Week. Just coming off of COVID, that was interesting to have that to get going again. So that was pretty nice.
Nice. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your time at Howard University as a professor and how that has kind of influenced your craft.
Influenced
your craft.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Being a professor in my time at Howard University has, there's no words to describe. It's a total full circle. I got my MFA at Howard University in that exact department. So to be able to be there and give back is absolutely amazing. How it influences me or validates me is with my students. My students are absolutely amazing. They're open-minded, they're bright. If you know anything about Howard University, it has the proclivity to attract the brightest and the best students from all over the world. So they are energizing and creative, so all it does is reflect back on me and what I'm doing.
What kind of talent do we have coming out of Howard?
Oh my goodness, I can't even go down the whole list. Recently, one of my students, Sankara, she is a definite influencer in the style industry. She just did a huge styling. I don't know the actual artist's name, but it was totally a big deal. I have students that are actually working for big name brands, you know, such as Gucci and things of that nature. So it goes the gamut. I get a blur when you ask that question because everybody there, everyone that has come through there is doing something like major, really major.
Nice. So maybe let's talk a little bit about NFTs and fashion. Do you see an intersection between the two?
Yes, NFTs and fashion is going to be a big deal. If you know anything about gaming and the clothes and the costumes worn in gaming, they are influencing the fashion industry. The fashion industry is currently creating things of that nature, and they are making a lot of money doing it. I don't know if you are familiar with the young lady designer Hanafa, who presented her clothing line in the virtual display. I teach that course, that particular program. So with doing that, that CLO program was first another program before that, and it was for gaming, but we used fashion. So with that intersection, it's becoming a big deal. Gucci just dropped, it was like a couple of months ago, a limited edition NFT sneakers, where you could only get, at a limited time, be able to acquire them. They're also working with Christie's to do their NFTs, and the things that are coming out of there are quite lucrative, very lucrative.
And what would you say your personal markers of success are?
Well, my personal marker of success is getting to have a real live model of my things every day, no matter what they look like. No matter what, total supportive. That's success, when you get someone to support you in what you're doing, no matter what.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to move on to Miss Yvena Despagne. Hello.
Hello.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your business, your company, RX Haiti, and kind of the typical planning that goes into that.
So I won't take full credit for the development of RX Haiti. I was actually approached by the original founder, Samantha Nader. She interviewed me and featured me on RX Haiti. Scaling back to when I first started looking for Haitian contemporary artists, like I said, I felt like there was a lack of representation and I wasn't seeing as many Haitian artists. And unfortunately, there are not enough books or literature that help with that. And so what I was finding on Google were the classic artists. But I felt like I'm a Haitian artist. There has to be other young Haitian artists doing the same works as Basquiat or and so through RXIAT, I did start to find more artists, and Instagram is a great resource. I feel like the person who invented that, perfect, because that is the modern resume, modern portfolio when it comes to finding Haitian artists. And I was finding more and more and more. And so I was approached by Samantha a few months later. She wanted to get involved in traveling to India for a program on meditation. And so she needed help with our RXIAT because she wouldn't be able to take care of it herself. And so she reached out to me and 5 other artists. And all of us as creatives decided, yes, we want to help you to maintain this platform. The reason behind RXIAT, I'm sure everyone knows there's a whole bunch of RXs in the industry, RX Lagos, RX Africa, RX even America. But there was no RXIAT. There was no platform that was representing Haiti as we thought it should be represented. So she started RXIAT, and I thought that was brilliant. And she, after we started working with her, we kind of started pouring in ideas of how we can create better waves for RXIAT. And so after a while of being in her program, she decided that maintain RXIAT wasn't something that she not meant to do, but couldn't maintain anymore because she was fully focused on what she was exploring in India. And so she decided, you know what, whoever wants to take over, please take over. And I raised my hand quick, I will take it. Because for me, I felt like this platform was so wonderful that I could not see it die out. And so I took over, and I felt very excited because all the ideas that were pouring in my head as to how much better we can make our anxiety, now I had the opportunity to do that. And so typically in the beginning, she was just posting pictures of art and naming the artists and doing interviews on the website, but I felt like we could do so much more. And I started reaching out. I originally had good relationships with a lot of Haitian artists already, such as Stephen Babon, Linda, who are sitting in the front here. Pierre is here too. Pierre Jean-Baptiste, who actually has a show here now currently at Haitian Heritage Museum. And so I felt like with those group of people, I could start to build something. And so I decided I wanted people to see our faces, not just the art. Because honestly, looking at pictures online can be very deceitful. And sometimes you could think that the person that's creating the work is either a white person or it could be a man. And in reality, it's a Haitian artist or whomever. And so I felt like it was important for emerging artists, especially artists who wanted to dive into art and knew nothing about the art market. It was very important for these artists that were actually doing well in the industry to show their faces, to speak out, to talk about their experience and share that with all of us. And so I started interviewing artists all over, from Canada to the States to Paris to Haiti. I was, again, Instagram was such a great tool for that because we were able to do lives. So people were able to see in real time and hear things and ask questions. And so I had artists taking over. I started doing studio visits with artists, having them show their studio and talk about their work day. I had artists expressing, what it is to, I was interviewing art curators in the industry, and there's not very many Haitian curators out in the industry. And so I just wanted to open a can worm of possibilities for young artists, and it was picking up quickly. People were actually DMing me and thanking me and saying, because of this platform, I found this artist. And then I was finding out that artists were collaborating and working together, and it's only because they found each other through our anxiety. So I felt like there was something growing here that can grow to be even more than where it is. And having these Haitian contemporary artists be known and be seen when they weren't being seen before is just such a wonderful thing.
Thank you. And last question for you. As a curator, what have you noticed, if you want to speak on the pros and cons of kind of curating on an online platform versus having in-person shows?
I wouldn't say I necessarily curated an actual exhibition or show online. It's mostly in person. But I would say that, there are different forms of curating. People curate clothing. People curate events. And so I felt like Instagram was a form of curating as well, because there's an aesthetics to how you present the things that you're featuring. And so as far as the difference between curating live, I get to, interact directly with people and hear see their reactions, versus online you can't see those things. So you don't even know how many people are actually paying attention. So I would say, yeah.
Thank you. So last but not least, we have Miss Melissa.
Hola.
So Melissa, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what encouraged you to create Sugarcane and what the role of the publication and the entire art ecosystem is.
In 2004, I was working for a cultural organization, and I was tasked with putting together a cultural season. But there was no money in the budget to send me to New York. Typically in New York, right around January, they have a huge huge set of events where people actually go and see shows by different artists who have traveling shows, and then you can go and you can book that show at the different locations around the country. There was no money to send me, so I had to figure this out on my own. So I went to Mr. Google and started Googling. And I just thought that it was odd that there was no one place that I could go to for inspiration or to find people. There was no website that kind of focused on Black art like that. It just didn't exist. The only thing that existed was OK Africa, and OK Africa at that time was strictly focused on music. That was before they had to kind of get rid of their male audience to get a female audience, and that's when they brought in, visual art, because they knew that would bring women, and that brings in spending. So before that, it was simply music. There were some very small pages only focused on Nigerian art, but that's it. There was nothing for Black art, there was nothing for music, dance, nothing that existed. So I decided that I would make this happen. And it was very difficult because this was 2004, so this was right before the Great Recession. Magazines were starting to close because they weren't getting advertising dollars, and there really wasn't any information online to how to start a magazine except to hire a consultant, which was $100,000 starting, and you had to have at least $1 million to get a magazine done. And I was like, oh, well, I don't have $1 million, so we're going to try this a different way. So I decided to make this virtual, and we built a site, and that's how we started. And initially, I didn't know what the impact would be. I knew that this was something that was important and something that didn't really exist in too many places. But I remember the first day that we went up, I spoke to my web designer. I said, well, how do I know how many people have actually visited the site? And she said, well, you have to go on your back end. So I kind of teetled around and found it. And I had 6,000 visitors, like, within hours. So I was like, oh, this is important. But even when you're behind a computer all the time and you're not really talking to people, you don't really realize what your impact is. You know, I'm talking to myself, and Sugarcane really spoke to an audience outside of Miami, and I didn't have access to those people. So it was Clubhouse that gave me access to those people, Instagram, all kinds of social media platforms that really introduced me to this audience that I didn't know was there. And that helped me realize the impact. I went to dinner with the collector last night, and he didn't recognize me because I don't always say, hey, I'm Melissa from Sugarcane, unless I'm supposed to tell you that I'm from Sugarcane. So I'll just say, hey, I'm Melissa, and leave it at that. When I gave him my card and it hit him, oh, that's who you are. He said to me, you know, CCH Pounder is a friend of mine, and I asked her, how do I start with collecting? And she told me, go to Sugarcane, that should get you started. And that's how you know, and he was just featured in Architectural Digest. So that's how you know, and he's a Brandon Denier collector. So, yes. So that's how I realized what this impact is all about. And knowing that I'm creating a platform, an equality platform. I think that that's more important to me. You can always find platforms everywhere, but if you're putting together quality work, looking for great writers and looking for great artists, that makes all the difference in the world.
Right, right. Thank you. That was a lovely story. Lovely, lovely, lovely.
Yes.
Real quickly, maybe we can talk about what the start to finish looks like for creating a quarterly magazine.
It starts with me using voice notes on my phone, and the constant scroll. I'm, you know, always scrolling, always looking at other magazines. I do read lots of other ones. I read fashion magazines as well, just for the inspiration, just to see what's going on out there. And me taking voice notes and watching other writers. Part of the reason why I'm always reading is because I'm always looking for other Black writers, finding out where they're writing from, and getting an idea of if they will be a good fit for me. You know, for some people, you know, it may not work. This may be somebody I can speak to a lot later. There are others that I can maybe bring in. And that's how it starts. And, you know, telling stories, you know, what story do we want to tell? You know, for this issue, you know, we really want to talk to Betty Saar. When I found out she was doing the show locally, I was like, I will not rest until somebody gets this. And I knew that, you know, I didn't realize she was as old as she was. I didn't realize she was 95 because she does not look 95. And I met her a few years ago when she was walking around and talking to us like, I thought she was in her 70s. So, but we were still able to get that, and I really wanted to tell her story, the story of her work, and to get her words captured, because I realized that a younger generation needs to remember that she's here and not just see her work, but to also hear her voice, even if it's in the written form. It's making sure that collectors are heard, you know, young collectors as well as more established. You know, we get a chance, your piece actually, Kendra, on Bryant, it was really interesting learning how hip-hop inspired this young man to become an art collector. That when he kept hearing Kanye West music, he realized, what is this all about? And he explored it, and he is now a big collector. I was able to go to one of his gallerists and hand them the magazine. And it was important because the flip side of that is so many black collectors, when they go to galleries, they are actually sent away and told that we cannot sell to you, that the work doesn't, that we don't have any work for you, or they show them something that's inexpensive and kind of crappy that they, you know, that nobody wants to buy, instead of giving them the opportunity to buy quality pieces that they have the money for, or else they would not be there. We're not going to go anywhere where we can't spend the money. You know what I'm saying? Like we know if we have to ask, then we're not going to buy. So if we're walking into an establishment, if we're buying one of these sofas or we're buying a piece of art, it's because we know what that price point is and we can buy it. And they typically won't take them seriously. And I made sure that that gallerist knew that that work was owned by a young black man, and that you need to be sure to contact him again when you get back to your home city, and make sure that the next time you have a dinner that he's there, the next time that artist has new work comes out, that you're inviting them there, because that typically doesn't happen. And creating a platform where we can make that happen and start to change this ecosystem is important, and that's always front of mind when I'm coming out with the issue every year. Making sure that we celebrate black women. Our first issue ever, Mchale was in that first issue. Focus, yes. Because we focused on black women, because every year I saw us toiling, whether we were gallery assistants or, you know, running full-fledged fairs, and not getting the attention that we deserve. And now go to Art Basel now. We have, what, 6 to 7 galleries owned by black women? That I've never seen that. At one time, that's phenomenal. So that change has to be made. And I know that things can always change and that we have fads and, you know, this may go away, but I was telling some people last night, I said, and that may happen. But what I do remember is that there's always memory. So our children will go back and say, wasn't there a time when there were like 7 galleries, owned galleries owned by women in Art Basel? How come we don't have that again? And they will make sure that they start this process again and keep pushing for that. So every issue starts with, how do we affect change?
That was beautiful, Melissa. Lovely, thank you. So our last question before we open up the floor for Q&A is, I want each panelist to answer, what does it mean to create your own opportunities? We'll start with Mikhaile.
What does it mean to create your own opportunities? I mean, I think maybe the theme here between all of us is that we notice where there's something drastically missing, and we use whatever inherent gifts or talents we have to fill those gaps. So in my case, it was, we don't have a black-owned fair that celebrates diasporic work. How can I use my skills and aggressively use those skills to make something that can fit community? In Mikki's instance, she's teaching a whole generation of future fashion designers, and hopefully we'll see a lot under her care, under her auspices, we'll see a lot more black fashion designers in the industry. In the case of, I'm sorry, Yvena, she's helping to promote the work of Haitian artists globally, and because it is a global platform, Instagram, she's able to reach millions of people with her talents. And then Sugarcane is virtual and now in print, so you can get it either way. You can get it in the actual physical format, or you can get it virtually. So I think it's about us exploring the fullness of who we are, understanding what gifts we have, and catalyzing those gifts to contribute wherever we can contribute.
how do you go about creating opportunities or finding? I personally, it starts with my passion. I noticed that with every opportunity that has ever come my way or intersected with me, it was because I had a passion for it, or I was thinking about it, or looking into it, or working it, and then miraculously the opportunity would present itself. And I find that to be with most of us here, that you were looking for something that wasn't there, and you manifested that opportunity. So I will say that.
For me, I would say that fear, being rid of fear, is one of the biggest culprits of creating opportunity for yourself, and confidence. Because you're going to have to be able to walk into a room full of people, sit in front of a panel, and discuss these things. But you also have to remember that there's a greater picture at the end of it. It's not about me, it's not about us, but it's about the work that we're doing to produce, to put out there for those who need it, those who need to hear it, and those who need to see it. And so that would be that for me.
This is a hard question for me. Okay, so I love the fact that I was able to create opportunity for myself, but it was really more about creating opportunity for others. I really love helping people make their dreams come true. So knowing that someone was happy to, to be in print, that the young woman on this month's cover, for example, always wanted to be a cover girl. And now, through the work of LaToya Hobbs, she is now the cover girl for her first magazine ever in life. I love helping writers, achieve their dreams and build their portfolios and be able to go to other publications and say that I wrote for Sugarcane magazine and it carries some weight. Those are things that make me happy. I want to know that I'm doing what I'm called to do to help other people do what they're called to do. So that's what creating opportunity is for me.
Thank you, thank you. So that wraps up our conversation for today. We are going to open up the floor if anyone has any questions for the panelists. I'll come by and hand you the mic.
Hi, thank you so much for the panel. My name is Lauren Davidson of Museum Nectar out of DC. And I just had a question regarding your thoughts on the question of diversity and inclusion in the current time, within the museum space, within the gallery space, within the general art space at large. What are your thoughts about sustainable diversity and sustainable, acts toward that end?
Mikhaile, you want to grab that?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of because I work with a lot of philanthropic organizations, and diversity and inclusion is a buzzword that we've been hearing for the past 5 years. But a conversation that I'm typically having with them is that it can't be just a buzzword. We have to allow the organizations, and we have to fund them properly, right? So that they can build sustainable organizations. The funding that organizations that are run by non-Black or non-POC organizations is often vastly larger than organizations who are run by POC individuals. So I think holding some of these organizations accountable and asking them for more, and for funding that is on par with that of other organizations is one thing. And then also, I think we have to be valiant about championing our own causes, because I think the only responsible stewards of our cultures is going to be us. A lot of people, a lot of other organizations, you have to be careful because people understand the value of what we have. And a lot of other folks make money off of what we do, in music, culture, art, otherwise. And I know that a lot of other art fairs beyond Prism are now only now starting to show black galleries and black artists. But a lot of organizations have been trying to do that, that are run by black folks, have been trying to do that for a long time, but couldn't gain access to the resources to do it. But that's part of why I made myself responsible for doing this, because I know that I'm always going to want Prism to thrive. I'm always going to want the artists that are participating in Prism to thrive. So I think a large part of ensuring that diversity inclusion is not just a trendy, it's not just a trend, is that we become extremely responsible about making sure that it isn't just a trend. And when we can, we hold other people accountable and say, listen, the only people who are going to be able to do this the right way is us, so you need to give us the resources to do it. So.
And also making sure that we make those organizations and those businesses do what they say that they're going to do. After George Floyd, you couldn't count the number of promises that were out there for people to give money and to be more supportive. And there was a lot of, forward-facing things, but in the background, a lot of money that was supposed to show up did not. So it was making sure that those organizations and those businesses do exactly what they say they're going to do. There's no reason why that any of our organizations should be struggling. So it's up to us to make sure that they do that. You can demand that by, doing op-eds, by, depending on where you give, telling them that I will not give until I know that, these organizations are being funded. And if you can keep demanding that, that makes the work that we're trying to do a lot easier, because that puts their feet to the fire. And you have to do that. And I know it can be exhausting, right? Because sometimes you just want to go, look, maybe next time. But that's just not the way the world works right now. It'll get better later, but it will get better once we make them do what they need to do.
Oh, and can I just also add one thing, extra thing to that? We also have to become extremely responsible about our relationship with financial literacy. Because the only way you can really do these things is if you know how to manage money and if you have the money. And sometimes, unfortunately, our community doesn't necessarily have that relationship with money. So all of last year when we had downtime I was literally teaching myself financial management. Because I realized I was like, how come they have money? Why do they have money, and how do they get the money? And so I was like, I just need to understand what that is and what that looks like, and then I should be able to do it myself. So that's another thing.
I just also wanted to add constantly being present and sharing. And I think I've been doing a very good job at that, and amplifying the voices of Haitian artists and constantly sharing and saying, hey, do you know this artist, or have you heard of this gallery or this curator? And I believe that helps, just constantly being present and sharing.
Any other questions? We have maybe time for one or two. One question. I'm gonna get her real quick.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for hosting this panel. This is just more of a personal question. Working in the arts, I'm an avid collector. So I was just curious, as collectors, I'm sure you are, if you can just describe your favorite piece and why. This is more about an exploratory discovery of also the artists that you enjoy as well.
Can I mention two artists that I like? Okay. One artist that I really enjoy, she's from Barbados. Her name is Sheena Rose. And Sheena is, not only is she a fantastic artist, but she's also she has an extremely infectious personality. She's almost like her energy is very performative. And she's actually a very a fun person to be around. She is an avid drawer. I visited her studio in Barbados several times, and she has stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of sketchbooks. She has over 500. She literally draws every single day. She's extremely prolific, and her practice just evolves more and more every day. And then there's another artist who I guess stumbled upon when I visited a gallery in South Africa 2 years ago. His name is Derek. I don't want to mess his name up. Mumalo, and he's from Durban. And he paints these. Well, they're not paintings; they're drawings with color pencil. And you know, color pencils. People don't think of color pencils as a real medium, but he does these beautiful landscapes of South Africa with color pencil. And they're very vibrant. I could only imagine how many boxes of color pencils he goes through making these, because they're large. He makes small format, but then he also has very large, like paint or drawings that are like probably the width of this entire room. Yeah, he's another incredible artist that I like to, whose work I like to see and collect.
Thank you.
I would say my favorite artist is Preston Sampson. And the reason why I say this is because we started out together a long time ago at the University of Maryland, painting color swatches. I watched this artist evolve into all the things that he has done now. Some of his things have been featured in Architectural Digest. He just got inducted into Congress for his artworks. The subject matter is always black. Black music, black baseball, black lounge, black family, color palette, amazing. So he is my number one favorite.
Thank you.
I'm not going to say I have a favorite. I'm not falling into that trap because I don't want anyone calling me later saying, Yvena, I thought, no. I love all the art that I collect, but if I can say that anyone that stood out to me as you asked that question was a piece that I have by Charles Jean-Pierre. Charles Jean-Pierre, which is a good friend of mine, he gifted me with this beautiful piece with the Vodou symbol on it, which is the Ogu. And so Ogu is a symbol for the family of fight and war. And, you know, as my career is developing, things are getting crazier and more chaotic. And I sometimes feel like I'm losing myself or my mind, or am I doing this right? And so if I can describe this piece, it's blotches of different colors that kind of blend together, and then he has that veve on top. And I purposely don't even realize I curate my walls. Sometimes I switch out the art that's on my walls as inspiration or just something to look at as motivation. And at the time that I was doing this big project, and I was getting anxiety like I always do. And so at that one moment, I said to myself, Yvena, breathe. And I breathed. And as I was breathing, I was looking at that symbol. And for me, it clicked. I didn't get it before, but it dawned on me at that moment, wow, that's exactly what that piece means. So much color, so much chaos, so much going on in the backdrop, but the Ogu is saying, I got you. You got this. You can do this. And so now, yes, as I think of it, that's one of my favorite pieces.
Thank you.
So I have to ditto what she just said. I don't want anybody coming for me like, why'd you say that, girl? No. Okay, but I have three. One was a piece that I used to own and was stolen by a local artist. I would like to name him first, just kind of give out to local people, Robert McKnight. Robert McKnight does amazing abstract work. My mother liked abstract art, and so that's the reason why I like abstract art. He's really wonderful. He went to Syracuse, I think is where he got his undergraduate degree many, many years ago, I think like in the 70s. He was really lucky that he integrated, I think, a high school in South Dade, and he had an art teacher who saw his talent and walked him through the process of getting into college. And that probably would not have happened had he not had this teacher who really believed in him. And I really like his abstract arts. Latoya Hobbs is an artist that I missed out on. I could have bought her when her work was super affordable, and I'm still salty about that. I say that everywhere I go, and I've been saying it all week. But somebody that I would like to collect now is Qualisha Wood. There's an interview and an essay about her on our website right now. I'm really interested. I love figuration, but I'm ready to move on. And even though she still uses it, I love the fact that, this is something that you would have initially thought was, oh, it's a piece of a carpet. And she really has done something really fun and interesting with her work. So those are the three that I dig all the time.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So before we wrap things up, maybe each person can just, tell folks where they can find them, whether on Instagram or however you want to do that.
I guess I'll start. Well, we have our virtual fair happening like literally right now. I decided to do the fair virtually this year versus in person. So you could actually go to prism.art, and that is where you'll literally find over 100 artists participating in the fair, as well as 7 art galleries. And you can find us on Instagram at Prism Art Fair.
Thank you, thank you. Where can we find you, Mikki?
You can find me at Mikki Taylor 91 on Instagram, where you'll see some of the activities that we're taking pictures of here and things happening at the college and so forth. So that's where you can find me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I have 2 platforms. There's my main platform, Yvena Despagne Art, named after myself, where I showcase a broad of artists, not just Haitian artists. And then the other platform, which is RXIET, IET spelled AYITI. You can find me there as well.
Thank you, thank you.
I do have a personal Instagram account, Melissa Hunter Davis. I don't post there a lot though, but you can follow me. I'm going to get better in 2002, and I did say that in 2021, but we're going to try 2022 and see if I get it together. But most importantly, you can follow me at Sugarcane Magazine on Instagram, and you can also visit our site, sugarcanemag.com. You can read the different articles that we have there, and you can also subscribe to our magazine and have your issue mailed to you.
Thank you. So it's been such a pleasure hosting this conversation. My name is Kendra Walker. Make sure you grab a copy of Sugarcane and have a great rest of your week.
Okay, I think you guys need to give a standing ovation if you can for these wonderful panelists. It was amazing. Give it up for them. Thank you guys so much for coming. And of course, we have Miss Douglas who's going to close us out, and I'm going to open up the museum. And we're going to take a group shot with the panelists. We are. But then you guys can definitely, if you want to get more information from them, you can talk to them. I know a few of them have to really go right away. But definitely you want to, I guess, talk with them. So we're going to bring up Mrs. Douglas to close out. You guys can sit down to hear Miss Douglas. All right, give it up for Miss Douglas.
Well, that was absolutely awesome, wasn't it? Yes. So we thought we would close out with a piece because not forgetting that almost within the past 2 years, we have been through a lot of trials, have we not? The pandemic has touched so many of us in so many different ways and taken us through a whole lot of emotions. But the word we want you to leave with today is to stay encouraged, stay positive, gather together, and work together. And remember that collaborative efforts is everything. I always say you can choose to travel solo and you will remain so low. So instead, grab someone's hand, collaborate with them, and do great things. And so this piece is just going to take you through probably some of the emotions that you've experienced within the past 2 years, but we're going to leave it on a very positive note. Ready? It's called Falling Down. I'm falling down, spiraling into an abyss of darkness. This day is taking me into oblivion. Too much to handle, too much stress. I feel like there's no way out of this mess. My skies are turning gray because I'm worn down. Floods of emotions have turned my smile into a frown. I guess I must rise, at least that's what my intellect says, but my heart is weighed down. And my head and my heart aren't connecting today, and so down I fall. With a seesaw of emotions, I try to contend, up, then down, strong, then weak, laugh, then cry, faith, then fear. God, when will it end? Trying to take this thing hour by hour, because beyond that, I've lost the power to have control. Dark clouds have loomed and blocked my vision, and since my sight is obstructed, my eyes and my feet can no longer connect to create a straight path, and so I miss my step, and I keep falling down. But reality for me will never be. I'm falling and I can't get up. No, that's not me. You see, I was created with the intellectual capacity to clearly see that to rise defies gravity. Nature makes it easy for us to stay down, so I guess I've decided to become unnatural, to create my own laws. Because when I remove the clouds that have obstructed my vision, and my eyes and my feet reconnect, I will step up. I will remove the weights from around my heart and cast them into the sea and watch out. Because when I choose to climb off that seesaw of emotions, you will look at me and you will see a beautiful thing that, like a bird with clipped wing, I healed, spread my wings, and chose to be free. Thank you all very much.